Welcome to Little English Studio, where English learning meets the inspiring stories of the world's greatest people. Here, we tell powerful life journeys in clear and simple English, so you can improve your English while discovering lessons of courage, resilience, and hope. Today, we bring you the extraordinary story of Evelyn Dove, a woman whose voice broke barriers of race and gender, and who paved the way for future generations of black performers in Britain and beyond. She was elegant, determined, talented, and brave. At a time when society often refused to accept women like her, Evelyn stood proudly on the world stage, proving that music and art could cross every boundary. This is the full story of Evelyn Mary Dove, the Nightingale of the Empire. Evelyn Mary Dove was born on January 11, 1902 in London, England. Her family background was unique, even extraordinary for her time. Her father, Francis Dove, came from Sierra Leone in West Africa. He was highly educated, trained in law, and worked as a barrister in London. In a period when black men in Britain faced heavy prejudice, Francis Dove was remarkable for his professional success and respectability. Her mother, Jessie Brown, was English, and together the couple raised their children in a respectable, middle-class home. Evelyn grew up in a multicultural family, something unusual in early 20th century Britain. London was the capital of the British Empire, full of ships, trade, and travellers, but it was also a place of rigid class divisions and racial prejudice. For a mixed-race girl like Evelyn, life would never be simple, yet her parents gave her the gift of education, discipline, and confidence. From a young age, Evelyn showed a love for music. She sang constantly, played piano, and dreamed of standing before audiences. When Evelyn was just a teenager, she won entry into the Royal Academy of Music in London, one of the most prestigious music schools in the world. This was already an extraordinary achievement. At the academy, she studied singing, piano, and composition. She was trained in classical styles, learning opera, art songs, and techniques that demanded discipline and range. In 1917, at only 15 years old, Evelyn graduated with honours. Her teachers recognised her talent, noting her rich contralto voice, deep, warm, and emotional. But despite her qualifications, Evelyn faced a painful reality. The opera houses of Britain were not open to women like her. At the time, very few black singers were accepted into the world of European classical music. The colour of her skin closed doors that her voice should have opened. Instead of giving up, Evelyn chose another path. She would bring her training into new spaces, cabaret, jazz, and variety shows, and there she would shine. In the early 1920s, Evelyn joined the Southern Syncopated Orchestra, an African-American musical troupe that toured across Europe. The group introduced British and European audiences to jazz and black popular music, blending syncopated rhythms with lively stage performance. For Evelyn, this was a turning point. She was no longer confined to rigid classical expectations. Instead, she embraced a new, exciting musical culture that was taking the world by storm. With the orchestra, she travelled through France, Spain, Germany, and other European countries. For the first time, Evelyn saw how audiences outside Britain responded with wonder and excitement to music performed by black artists. It was during this period that she earned her nickname, the Nightingale of the Empire. Her voice, smooth and emotional, seemed to capture both joy and sorrow. She could move audiences to tears with a love ballad, or lift them into celebration with a jazz standard. By the mid-1920s, Evelyn Dove was performing across the continent in the great cabaret capitals of Europe. In Paris, she appeared at famous nightclubs alongside the legendary Josephine Baker, who was revolutionizing performance with her exotic and glamorous image. Evelyn's style was different. She was elegant, refined, dressed in beautiful gowns, and sang with a voice that blended jazz warmth with classical training. In Berlin, during the golden era of the Weimar Republic, Evelyn starred in revues and nightclubs, delighting cosmopolitan audiences hungry for modernity and diversity. Berlin in the 1920s was a place of artistic experimentation, and Evelyn was at its heart. She also toured Moscow in the 1930s, performing for Soviet audiences fascinated by Western jazz and cabaret. Few British women, and certainly no black British women, had ever performed on such an international stage. Evelyn was truly a global star before the world fully recognised her. Evelyn Dove's most groundbreaking success came in Britain, where she fought for recognition in her own country. In 1939, she began appearing on the BBC, Britain's national broadcasting corporation. At the time, radio was the most powerful medium in the country. Millions of people tuned in daily. During World War II, Evelyn sang on radio programs that entertained soldiers and families alike. Her voice brought comfort and escape during years of bombing, rationing, and uncertainty. She became the first black woman singer to perform regularly on BBC radio. This was historic. In a society where black performers were often excluded or stereotyped, Evelyn was heard by millions simply as an artist, a beautiful voice singing songs of love and hope. In 1945, she was given her own radio series, titled Sweet and Lovely. Each week, she performed romantic ballads and popular songs, accompanied by live musicians. For many listeners, Evelyn Dove was the first black woman they had ever heard on national radio. Her presence helped normalize diversity on the airwaves and challenged the silent barriers of prejudice. But Evelyn's journey was never smooth. After World War II, the music industry changed. Jazz evolved into new styles, popular music shifted, and younger singers emerged. Evelyn, who had been a star of the 1920s and 1930s, found herself pushed aside. She continued to perform in smaller venues, appeared in a few stage shows, and even acted in theatre, but her visibility declined. By the 1950s and 1960s, Evelyn struggled financially. Despite her international fame and pioneering achievements, she did not receive the recognition or opportunities she deserved. She applied for jobs outside music, sometimes even working as a typist or in modest clerical roles. For a woman who had once sung across Europe, performed with great musicians, and been celebrated by the BBC, this was a cruel twist of fate. Her story reflects the harsh reality of racism and sexism, which continued to limit opportunities for black artists in Britain. Evelyn Dove passed away in 1987 at the age of 85. At the time, her name had faded from public memory, but history would not forget her for long. In the early 2000s, researchers, historians, and music lovers began to rediscover her contributions. Books and documentaries highlighted her as a pioneer of black British entertainment. She is now celebrated as one of the first black women graduates of the Royal Academy of Music. The first black woman singer featured regularly on BBC radio, an international star, performing across Europe, Russia, and beyond. A trailblazer whose career paved the way for later generations of black British singers, actresses, and broadcasters. Evelyn Dove's story is not only about music, it is about courage. She proved that a woman of colour could stand proudly in the spotlight, bringing beauty and dignity to a world that often tried to deny her both. What can we learn from Evelyn Dove's life? Talent needs courage. Evelyn had the gift of voice, but it was her determination that allowed her to succeed. Barriers can be broken. At a time of racial prejudice, she forced open doors in broadcasting and music. Fame is fragile. Her decline reminds us that society must support artists equally, not let prejudice erase them. Legacy is lasting. Even if forgotten for a time, her story was rediscovered and now inspires a new generation. Thank you for joining us in the incredible life journey of Evelyn Dove, the Nightingale of the Empire. She was more than a singer. She was a pioneer, a bridge between cultures, and a symbol of elegance in the face of adversity. At Little English Studio, we bring you stories of inspiring lives, told in simple English, so you can improve your English while discovering history's most powerful voices. If you liked this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring journeys.